you look at the palm oil sector, what we saw was initially a lot of companies, the way they expressed their concern about this was by joining the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, the RSPO, which unfortunately has been captured by some of the bad actors in the Malaysian palm oil industry and does things like certify destruction of so-called secondary forests and even high carbon stock peatlands. Now there's been an awareness that you can't just check a box with certification. In some cases, it can be a very useful tool to make sure that you're reaching your goals and representing your values. But in this new era, I think some due diligence is required. And what that means is companies shouldn't be afraid to innovate. I think innovation is necessary. So if your competitor adopts a no deforestation policy, go beyond it and follow APP's lead and announce a commitment to restoration. In other sectors, if your competitor says we're going to stop using tar sands oil in our fleet, that's a great thing and you should do that too, but go beyond that and talk about how you're going to launch a fleet of carbon-free electric vehicles. I think innovation and using sustainability as an attribute for competition can actually create not only a lot of change in the world, but a lot of business value as well.
One of the most encouraging things about the transformation that is happening here is that no laws were passed to create the change that's happening. Of course, there are laws that help to contribute to the process, but this was all done in the free market, in the relationships between these entities that have their own sources of power. And we know when we look at the political process, it's a highly gridlocked process. It's not a process that when it does come forward with rules and regulations, they tend to be very rigid. They tend to be pretty, much tied to maybe the lower performance levels and so on. At the same time, it is necessary to have a structure of laws within which companies can compete on a level playing field in ways that advance the interests of the whole community. Glenn, can you tell us quickly, because we're beginning to run out of time, what kinds of policies are necessary to create that framework?
Well, there's a lot of them, as I'm sure you can imagine. One of the critical things that we think is necessary is for a joint implementation body that involves government, companies, civil society, and the public to look at these no deforestation commitments and other sustainability commitments, provides monitoring, draws on satellites, draws on the ground monitoring, so that every company in this room and beyond knows what's actually happening on the ground. When we talk to consumer companies, one of the things we hear a lot about is Wilmar really implementing its policy? Is GAR really implementing its policy? The answer is yes, they're doing a good job, and APP is too. There are gaps. Wilmar alone has over 400 suppliers. When we see problems, I think the model has been to just provide private data. What we need is government to be involved, not only in providing that data, but enforcing it so there's a level playing field. There's a number of other policies that I would encourage companies to really take an active role in making sure that governments do adopt this, so that you have the knowledge and the certainty that everybody's playing by the same rules and that things are actually getting done. One of the things that we'd like to see is expansion of the principles of the Lacey Act, which prohibits import of illegally logged wood and paper into the United States. Similar laws exist in Europe and Australia. We'd like to expand that to other commodities. I think obviously in the forest nations themselves, there's a huge need for reform. Better enforcement, but also things like allowing companies that have forest concessions that want to conserve to not lose it if they don't convert it into a pulp and paper plantation or a palm oil plantation. Some of the concessions in Indonesia, actually, they're conditioned on the fact of development. And so if you don't change that, you're going to lose out. And then the one global thing that I think is really important that we desperately need in the United States, but a lot of other countries should adopt it as well, is a price on carbon. And this will not only cut pollution from coal, oil, natural gas, and sources like that, but it can actually generate revenue that can be spent to conserve forests. And really, it shouldn't only be, I think the private sector does have a lot of responsibility to repair past damage, but we need to have large-scale, government-scale investments in forest conservation. And I just conclude by drawing your attention to something that the IPCC report talked about most recently, that just came out, and it talked about the severity of the climate crisis. But in there, it said that between 20 and 60% of the near-term solution to climate change actually comes from forests and land use. And so this needs to be a priority for investment and policy change and conservation. And it's happening through the private sector, but the public sector needs to step up and be a partner, and that's not going to happen until private sector players take a much bigger role in advocating for a price on carbon and for action on forests.